biggest city, the smartest people, the biggest ideas.
There now is upon this planet, for the first time ever, a species so powerful it can determine its own evolution at its own choosing. That is Homo sapiens. What will we choose to become? Thank you.
And has been a program director for this mysterious organization called the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency.
Correct.
CIA spook stuff, unlimited budget, strange.
That wasn't funny. And as I started one of my previous lecture, I could tell you what I really do, but then I'd have to shoot you. So what I'd like to do, I always liked Ellen Kay. The way to predict the future is to invent it, but I can't invent anything at DARPA because it's just program managers. The only thing I have is money, and lots of it. And so rather than doing the research myself, I'm a technology harvester. I'm responsible for going around, finding out what's the coolest technology and seeing if we can fund it. The only criteria for getting a project funded by me is that your research can't be done. It's impossible. And if it's impossible, then we'll fund it because no one else will. And I know, and you know, that a lot of these things that are impossible are the things that we use on a day-to-day basis. Things that DARPA's done, such as the internet, lasers, cruise missiles, and a number of other things. So I'd like to show you some of the things that my colleagues are doing. That's the bridge to the future, and this is who's doing the research. I'm way in the back there somewhere. And I'm trying to understand from them what the direction of the future is, and those are the things I'm going to try to tell you about. The current vision at the future is here. We're in the information age. We finally arrived. Here's the future. And so the importance of this, particularly for healthcare, which is I'm in, is that an information age, moving to a new age, allows you to do something fundamentally different than you did before. Not slightly better, but revolutionary, if you will. And here's some examples of a couple of the programs that I have or am funding at the moment. The holomer, holographic medical electronic representation. Taking total body image of yourself and storing it on an electronic dog tag, which is what we're going to be doing for all of our soldiers there. As a matter of fact, 4th Infantry Division in Iraq right now, 4,000 of our soldiers have a complete image of themselves on their dog tags, so that we know when they're wounded what they were like when they were healthy. Handheld portable ultrasound. Before we started our program, an ultrasound was about the size of a refrigerator. And we worked with the University of Washington and made a tiny little product called handheld portable ultrasound. And it's now small enough that our medics are able to take it out into the far forward battlefield. But that wasn't good enough. Larry Crum and his colleagues at the Pride Physics Lab said, ultrasound is really a powerful tool, not only for looking inside of the body, but also for healing inside the body. And so the normal ultrasound allows you to do what's on the first slide, first level there. You can perforate a blood vessel, and when you put the scan over it, you can see the blood, the red stuff, jetting outside of the blood vessel. But what he did is he incorporated into the same piece of equipment high-intensity focused ultrasound. If you take two beams of ultrasound, where they cross, where they focus, it generates harmonic energy that results in heat, and you can coagulate or even vaporize tissue from the outside of the body. And so now we have in prototype this type of handheld portable ultrasound that, for example, when a soldier is wounded, we could wave it over them, find out where the damage is, press the button, and stop the bleeding. We've already done that in animals. Sound familiar? Star Trek tricorder, anyone? It's here. It's not fiction. I like Steven Spielberg's quote, "There's no such thing as science fiction, just scientific eventuality." And a number of those things I'll show you are actually coming here. Robotic surgery. I did some initial work on robotic surgery, and after we completed that, we sold it to a company called Intuitive Surgical. For those of you who have operations that are performed by a robot, this will be the system that you have. Now, that's really important because not only can we operate on you in the operating room, but we can do, for example, what Jacques Maresco did. He had his patient in Strasbourg, France, And from 4,000 miles away in New York City, he sat at the console and operated on his patient that was 4,000 miles away. Here, just outside of Toronto at McMaster University, Marin Anvari is one of the first surgeons in the world that is on a weekly basis doing 3 or 4 remote operations every single week. He sits here just outside of Toronto and operates at North Bay, 300 miles away, every week without leaving the university. Why are these important? Well, the first one I showed you, the holomer, the body image of yourself. Healthcare is the only industry that does not have a computer representation of its product, our patients. We cannot use hundreds of billions of dollars of hardware and software that's used by every other industry, whether it be for virtual prototyping, virtual testing and evaluation, and so on and so forth. We have to work in the real world, which takes a lot of time, money, and effort, when all the rest of the world is working in information space, doing it quicker, faster, and much more efficiently. But if we had a representation, if each one of you had a card that had a full 3D image of yourself, similar to the one that I happen to have, which is right there, then you know exactly what you're like. My left coronary artery is occluded by 75%, my right coronary by 50%, and my circumflex by 50%. And I am 100% asymptomatic. So I know the next time I have chest pain, it's going to be real because I've seen it. I don't have cancer. I don't have gallstones. But now I can start making some rational decisions because I've seen what it's like. I know what I have. In addition to that, people look at robots as machines, but they're not. They're information systems with arms or legs. And a scanner, a CT scanner, is not an imaging device. It's an information system with eyes. When you do this, what it allows us to do is bring everything together into the information world. And we can now work in information space and do things that are totally impossible in the real world. Sure, you're not going to see this for the next 5 to 10 years, but you will see it in 20 years. And the reason that you're going to see it in 20 years is because it exists today, but not for medicine or healthcare. All we have to do is adapt a few things that are already industry standards. Well, that's easy stuff because everything I told you today exists off the shelf, and it's nothing more than systems integration. I didn't have to invent a single thing for this. So the question is, what's outside the box if that's ordinary? That's how fast technology and business sector are going, and this is our social response to that. Much, much slower. Well, Clayton Christensen has a book called Disruptive Vision. It talks about those technologies that turn the entire field on their head. And there are a number of those that we are pursuing at this point in time. The first and most important thing to tell you is that the information age isn't the future. It's the present. You can't be the present and the future at the same time. So if the information age is not the future, the question is, what is? Well, the future is going to be multidisciplinary. We are now learning enough about science to understand complexity at a much higher level than we had before, and because of that, we will be able to do things that we had not been even thought conceivable in the past. Taking away from, if you will, Alvin Toffler on what is the ages of man, he described agricultural age, industrial age, and information age. There's a new age that's coming. If you notice, every one of those ages have this little tail in which the research gets done, and then there's a rapid slope. As it's discovered, it's the new revolution, and everybody gets into it. And then when consumers start accepting it, then what ends up happening is that we go from a revolutionary discovery to iterative changes or evolutionary changes. The reason that this is important is the information age is there. Everybody's got a computer, everybody's got a handheld. Can anybody tell me a revolution in computers or in phones in the past 10 years? Not an evolution, but a revolution. There's nothing new. At least not in information science. So we have to look elsewhere. And we coined the term biointelligence age because where the new things are coming is the overlap between sciences, between biological sciences, physical engineering sciences, and information sciences. New departments in factories and in companies, new divisions in our universities and so forth, they're all coming at what we call the interfaces. So multidisciplinary teams is what's going to determine what the future new technologies are going to be. We're building artificial organs. We've learned how at MIT and MGH to grow an artificial blood vessel system. The classic multidisciplinary approach where you have the computational mathematician designs a blood vessel system that communicates with each other to provide nourishment, then prints it out using stereolithography from the engineer and biomolecular particles from the chemical engineer and from the geneticist, and they're able to make a scaffold. They take the scaffold and put it in a bath of vascular endothelial stem cells, and they're able to grow in 2 weeks a living blood vessel system that, as you see on the bottom one, allows blood cells to go through it and nourish the tissues. Just this summer, they took this blood vessel system, put it in a vat with liver stem cells, and grew a tiny little part of liver, a living liver that they've been able to keep alive for 6 weeks. The next generation is going to be implanting them into animals, and then it goes to clinical trials. The time frame is between 5 and 10 years before we're going to be growing organs for yourself, replacement organs. Oops, damn it. I have about 2 seconds, if I can, about 2-3 minutes. These are the technologies that we're talking about. This is really important. This is why I wanted to talk to you today. This is the first genetically designed child. Are you going to design your grandchildren? Are you going to tell your son or daughter, I want my child to have blue eyes, I want them to have brown hairs? We can do it. It's no longer can, it's should we do it. Who's answering those questions? Who's answering these profound medical questions, ethical questions about whether or not we should do some of these things? And finally, as I mentioned, with synthetic parts or with artificial organs, we can now replace almost everything in your body. If 95% of you is replaced, are you still human? What does it mean to be human if all of your parts are replaced? If you were no longer this flesh and blood that you were born with, but your replacement parts, are you human? I don't know. Someone, your son and daughter, are going to have to answer that question. And it's going to happen before hell freezes over, because that's how fast technology and business sector are going, and this is our social response to that, much, much slower. So I've gone over these ethical questions, and I'd just like to leave you with this final thought. There now is upon this planet, for the first time ever, a species so powerful it can determine its own evolution at its own choosing. That is Homo sapiens. What will we choose to become? Thank you.
Get the latest Idealist news, presenter information, and watch streaming video at www.ideacityonline.com.